And we're live. Hey man,
Hey,
good
good
morning.
morning. How are you?
Good. So yeah, getting right into it.
I like this.
We had a really great talk on Friday. It's funny because like I don't think a lot of people. I mean, Fridays are these dead days. It seems for so much news or whatever. But I don't know. Friday was like a really interesting conversation. There's actually an uptick in our views too on that YouTube video. So for anybody watching this, go back and watch Friday's episode. We talk about analytics, and we talk about a problem Jason and Basecamp had with changing the sign-up form, changing how you guys the marketing page for Basecamp, and what you saw something happen, you guys changed it to get it back. But that was just a really interesting thing to kind of explore. But it got me thinking too. So after our Friday conversation, I started thinking about so high rise. I've been as soon as I got here, it was like, oh my God, we got to like reinvigorate product development and get people excited about high rise again. And we've been doing good. Like, I've been sending you guys numbers and showing you guys, the progress. Even like 6 weeks ago, I showed you like we had like our best week ever since like before, numbers we haven't seen since before I got here. Like things have gotten good. And then all of a sudden, like things got bloody again. Like nothing worse than it's been. Like, no struggle that we haven't kind of gotten through already, but it's like, what the hell just happened? And for, I was kind of chalking it up. Like, it's hard. There's so many variables. And so I was kind of chalking it up. Like, maybe it's just a seasonal thing. It's summertime. Maybe people are on vacation. And like, but after our conversation yesterday, I'm like, you know what? I can't just chalk it up to seasonal right now. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to dig into this a little bit more. And like, sure enough, like I've got analytics tools coming out of my ears. Like, but I've been digging into one. Like I'm a big fan of this one called Heap Analytics. I've showed you this before.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend people kind of check that one out. It's a neat one because it's like you just set it up and like you don't have to like pre-plan all the analytics that are coming in. You can kind of retroactively decide what you want to look at because it's tracking all sorts of clicks and things, and you can decide later what's important to you to look at. So I was actually looking at this and I was kind of digging into like how people are signing up for high rise and canceling high rise and whatever. And cancellations are steady, like no change there. So it doesn't seem like we've started upsetting people in any way. But our signups went down, and it's just like, that's weird. We haven't really changed, like you. We haven't changed the marketing page recently. Like we haven't made any crazy changes there to like stop people from signing up. I've looked at I go into New Relic to look at speed. Like that's another big one. Like, hey, did we do something recently to make it slower that people aren't liking? Nope, everything's been steady. So I keep digging, and like I finally find
maybe it's the show.
Maybe it's the show. That's true. But we're talking like a month and a half. So. And so not the show. I wouldn't chalk it up to the show. But what I do find, I started looking at Google searches. Our Google searches are down. Our searches, basically, people coming from Google, signing up for accounts is down.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. Okay. So I look at it some more, and it doesn't seem to be direct searches. It's not people looking for high rise. Those seem to still be the same. So it seems like something has stopped with our organic traffic. I don't know what it is. People looking for some keywords to lead to high rise. So that's the challenge. That's something that seems to happen recently. And we've got some stuff in motion at the moment already. Like I've been researching this week, and I've already started doing some stuff to hopefully help with this. But it seems like we've been making all these changes from things like our homepage, the marketing site, the help page. We actually in July launched a whole new help site. That might have actually kind of hurt in some ways because now we have all these different links. We really couldn't kind of redo. We wanted to redo everything, rewrite all the articles, and in the process, we may have drop some links that may have been important for things like search engine optimization. And I already see it. Like I started using, I'm a big fan of using Moz.com. It used to be called SEO Moz. I ran through that and actually found some like really high profile links that we have from the old marketing site that are 404ing right now. Things that we didn't realize people were pointing to us with, that now all of a sudden they just go to a 404 page. That may, these changes don't happen in like real time with Google, but that's something that may have caught up with us finally. So, we're looking at that. I'm getting a little bit more serious, like with SEO. That's something like I've had some experience with like Inkling. We got on the first page for things like prediction markets, and with Draft, I'm on the first page for Draft, and So there's some experience I have with that, and like I'm looking at high-rise right now. We haven't taken things like organic search seriously at all. We're not really looking and kind of promoting any keywords or paying any attention there. It's not a lot of work, but I don't know. That's a challenge. That's something I'm going through now. It's something that kind of sneaks up on you because like I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about SEO. I think about making a great product and just trying to get people to talk about it. And now all of a sudden, when the searches go down, it's just like, damn, I wish that didn't happen. But yes, that's something I'm fighting right now.
Yeah, I've got a little, I don't have any, well, a friend of mine named Josh used to run this site called 43 Things, which was, 43 Things and 43 Places and some stuff.
The robot co-op, right? Yeah.
Yeah, robot co-op, exactly. And their whole business was based on search engine traffic, basically. People searching for goals. Like, I want to lose weight this year. I want to climb a mountain this year. I want to run a marathon. I want to run a half marathon. I want to smile more. Like all these things that people have these goals for. And so when people searched on Google for a goal, the hope was 43 Things would come up as the first thing. And it did for quite a while. And their whole business was based on ad revenue. And one day, Google changed the algorithm and like half their business evaporated and they never were able to get it back. And it's such an interesting thing because you're sort of at the whim of some other company deciding when you're based on ad revenue or when you're based on traffic, which is pretty much like everyone on the web is based on traffic at some level, right? Some other company basically decides, which doors are open and which doors aren't, and is there a floodgate here or not, and where are we going to send traffic? So it's really interesting. And it's funny because SEO, when I think of SEO, I mistakenly think of like slimy growth hacking tricks and stuff like link bait headlines and all that crap. And that is part of that world. But the other part of the world is just the reality, which is people are trying to find you. They're coming in through organic search. They're looking for certain things. You better be sure. And we're not very good at this. So I'm just admitting this up front. We're not good at it at all, really. We don't spend any time on it. We should. You better be where people are looking for you. And that means paying attention to this stuff. And it's something we don't do. And it's good that you figured out, like you're narrowing down what it is. Because there's so many things you can just throw your arms up. Like, I don't know, maybe it's, like you said, maybe it's seasonal. And you're just like, well, I'll convince myself it's seasonal because that's the easiest thing to do. And then it's not my fault. And I don't have to do any work. It's like it's like the best solution to anything, right? It's not my fault. I don't have to do any work. It just happened.
They'll come back.
Back. Yeah. And I'm glad that you're digging into that and learning something. And hopefully we can learn something back from you on that. When you figure out exactly like what it is and what to do about it, it'd be good to talk about that later on.
Cool. And it's not something that like I feel like, when I go back and I look at the stuff I've done at previous companies with this, I've never really had to commit a lot of time to it. I mean, it's like, it's basically, like you're right. Like I don't give into the, I don't spend a lot of, I don't go into this whole growth hacking. Yeah. Growth hacking or what, like I don't spend this insane amount of time thinking about getting like all these links back but there's some just smart things it seems like you can do to obviously, like you're saying, like make sure these organic searches are working. Like just even making sure that words are on the page. I mean, people are looking for certain solutions to a problem. And do you even talk about using those words? And in that way, it's like it's not even really like about search. It's just about like fitting into that jobs to be done. I mean, people are looking to solve a problem. Are we using the language that they use? And when you don't, then you don't get found. And it's, like you said, I'm not going to be at the whim of Google. Like we have to do a whole lot more than just like optimize search to keep high-rise relevant. But when I see something like this, it's like, yeah, it's probably worth a couple days of like committing, like, hey, okay, what keywords are people really using to find things like high-rise? Like, let's optimize a page or two to make sure we're at least talking about those things. And if I do ever link back to high-rise from an article, let me at least use those keywords in the link back. It's really, and after a while of this, it just starts to build up on itself. But at least it should be something that's at least in the back of my mind when I'm like trying to think about like how to get people to think about high-rise using some of those words.
We're doing that in a different way, not with the marketing site, but with the help site. So we're redoing our help site for this new version of Basecamp because the product's all different. We got to do it all over. And Jeremy, who's on our what we call the SIP team, Security, Infrastructure, and Performance, was digging around Google searches a little bit on the help site to figure out what it is that people are actually looking for. And it's very eye-opening when you make an effort to do that, because the labels you use and the way you describe things and what you call things very often does not line up with what people are looking for. Or even, like, they don't know what to look for. They're describing something that just isn't in our vocabulary in terms of linking it up to help stuff. You know what I mean? So he's feeding that stuff back into Basecamp so we can look at that and figure out better ways to match keywords on. If someone's searching for calendar, well, maybe they're using the word schedule, or maybe they're using the word deadline, or maybe they're using the word milestone, or maybe they're using the word event, or maybe they're using the word date, like, or maybe they're using the word like late or overdue. Like, there's all these things, and they're basically kind of talking about the same thing, which is like, how do I set up some dates so I don't drop the ball on something? But we might call it a schedule, or we might call it a calendar, or whatever it is. And it's fascinating to see these things come through. And there's a long there's a long tail, of course, but it's really cool to just to be aware of this stuff, at the very least, just to be aware of it. And when you get the stuff out of the dark and into the light, like, you just open your eyes, you're like, whoa, we should be paying more attention to that. And hopefully we are, and we get better at that and map things properly, and even more so than even map things properly, maybe even just use language our customers are using more so than the language we feel like it should be. Yeah. You know, like, we feel like it should be called this, and the feature is called this, so therefore the feature is called this, and the help section should be called this, so you can find it. But that may not be how people think about this stuff. So it's a good challenge, I think, to have and just to be aware of.
Yeah, there's something interesting we get now. So when we redid the help site, the search engine we're using for the help site is a product called SwiftType, and they're pretty new, I think, on the scene. But I've been seeing some folks using them, so we've been using them, and we've had some good results. But one of the more interesting kind of aspects of the tool is every Monday the whole team gets an email that tells us what people are searching for. And it's just a really interesting insight. It's like, okay, and then I think it also even says, like, how many results, or what, are there any results for these searches? So it's basically like you're saying, it's like, it's this report that's now in my, it's up front in my vision. It forces me to kind of pay attention a little bit more, rather than digging through some SQL queries or something. Like, hey, okay, people are looking for this thing, and we don't actually even have an article for this. It's helpful.
Related to that is, it's a tangent, sort of, but I've been thinking a lot about this as we're making this new Basecamp, and we're not quite delivering on what I'd hoped to in a certain area for the initial version. I hope we kind of get back on track with that. But and I'll speak to that here, which is that I think one of the really interesting parts of software moving forward is not, so right now there's a big push towards integration. Everyone's trying to pipe data back and forth into different streams, and that whole thing. And that's certainly valuable, because it does put things in front of you that you may not have seen. But what I think is actually more useful ultimately is automation. So less integration, but more automation. By automation, I mean software actually doing something for you. Software sending data into a different stream isn't doing that much for you. It's like doing software things. It's like, I'll take this data and I'll put it over here, but you still have to look at it. I'm really interested in automation, which is, let me just deliver things to you. Let me go out and get stuff for you and deliver it to you on a regular basis, on an automated schedule, at some interval that comes to you where you're not, in a place that you're not looking. So for example, you're talking about these search reports. I'm assuming they're just emailed to you. Yeah. Is that right? Like, yeah. To me, the email inbox is a wonderful place for reports, because they are delivered, and the inbox is a great place to capture a report and view it later, or save it, or like it's something that you absorb in total versus something you absorb one small piece at a time over time. And I think this idea of automation, having software go out and do work for you, and then prepare something for you and deliver it to you on a regular basis, is a really powerful thing. And I'd like to see more of that in software in general. Software still requires a lot of human intervention to do basic things, and I'd love to see it sort of go the other way. So anyway, that's similar. Like, I like to see the thing that you just mentioned, because every Monday you get a report in your inbox. You're in your inbox anyway. You're checking stuff out, right? And then, but it comes to you at a moment when you can absorb it. You can absorb it like as a unit in one place at a time, versus having it just come to you all the time during the day. Like, if you had just had this thing drop search terms in a stream all day long, like, you might see things here and there, but you're not like absorbing them in the same way that when you take a moment to read something or look through something that's focused. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent, but I think that's, for example, if that feature of like showing search terms was in the app and people had to go into the app to look at it occasionally, you just probably wouldn't. But now it's like you stumble on it every Monday because it's telling you, it's sending you a report, which is just great.
Right. And I also, yeah, no, totally. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of this whole concept of just even like, exploring a task we all have and just removing steps in that. And like you're saying, these automations and delivering a report like that is just really just this really great, like, forethought about like, wow, like at some point a user of our system is going to like want to go and look at, a search term and what did it have results, and there's just this insight like, hey, someone is going to want to do some of these aggregations. Let's just skip that step for them, skip having them, they have to go dig into it and be at their doorstep with this thing that they're going to want to do anyways. Yeah, I agree. It's a powerful thing, and yeah, when people nail it, you really notice it.
Yeah, definitely. Why'd you pick that tool to build your help section? Is it tied in with some help desk thing you're using?
No. We built, so I'm trying to remember the decision because I feel like I'm the one who even brought up using it. But it was like our help site, we were going to make it from scratch. I think we're using Jekyll right now, so it's it's one of those static sites that are generated. So we had all the content. All of our content isn't in a database. It's just raw HTML pages for the help site. So that sort of pigeonholes us a little bit for a search database. We don't have a database to kind of query against. And a lot of these search tools are kind of based off of like taking data you have in a database and indexing it. But we just had a Jekyll site, so like raw static HTML content. Yep. And so I knew SwiftType was a tool that could look at all of our pages and index them. I think Google does a decent job of this too. But for some reason, I felt like SwiftType has some more modern tooling around things like these reports and stuff, and being able to manipulate the results and stuff. So yeah, we gave SwiftType a shot. I think our fallback was something maybe like Google's search, but I felt like we couldn't maybe white label that as well or use that as well as SwiftType. But so far I've been happy. You get results, and if you don't like the results, you can kind of see where like people are searching for something and they might not get the ideal results back, and they make it really easy to kind of weight those results differently. So someone might be looking up like imports and they get this weird thing about a more esoteric results than they're probably looking for with import help. So you can kind of tweak those results very manually to kind of give them a better experience. So yeah.
So let me ask you something about that. I heard you mention, well, we could white label it better than Google results, for example. Why does that matter?
That was probably low on the priority list of doing this. But it probably doesn't. I mean, there was a couple interesting things that I was looking at, though, that we haven't been able to take advantage of quite like we want to. But so when we were originally looking at SwiftType, it was doing something. We actually had this integrated, but then it wasn't quite working like we wanted it to. So this also may have influenced our decision. But there's like a JavaScript widget. So when you're looking at the help site itself and there's a search box, there's a JavaScript widget that is supposed to power kind of a search as you type, that it's supposed to kind of auto-complete your search.
Mm-hmm.
on the help site. So you don't actually have to like bounce over to another site to do the search. You're just kind of in the help site and you can kind of, do your thing and not go anywhere. And that was attractive. And I don't think you can achieve that with like the Google search, site search out of the box. I don't think.
Okay.
You might be able to do it with some API integration or something like that. So that was attractive. That was just kind of like, we also didn't have a very big team, so I didn't want us to kind of have to chase through like using Google's API to power this. It was just kind of like, oh, they made this nice that we could just drop this in and do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if I have any strong feelings of whether or not it would have been a not. If we had to bounce out to search, I don't know if I really had any strong complaints against it. People knowing it was like a Google search. I mean, Google's such a strong brand, anyways. Like I wouldn't have had, I don't think, much of a complaint about that. I do believe. To be honest, I think Ren at High Rise, our designer at High Rise, she did have some complaints. It may have been aesthetic based. It just from flowing from the help site to a brand new website looking kind of thing. It may be a little jarring for the user, but I don't know if I even agree with that. It's not a big deal to me. Is it a big deal to you? Do you
It's funny. I think about that too, and I don't know. What matters to me, I guess, is that somebody gets the right answer, and Google's quite good. Google's like the best there is at search, as far as I'm concerned, right? So like but maybe Swift type's better for very specific. I don't know. But like if someone can get really good results from a Google search, and it's kind of a plugin thing, and or you don't even necessarily need to use their API. You can just scope it by site or by URL.
Right.
They're pretty good at figuring that kind of stuff out. So I don't know. I don't really care. I don't think I care. I think that I probably used to care more about, well, we have to hide the fact that we're using Google search because this needs to be this cohesive experience, like this whole thing. And it's like, but why? Why does it actually have to be a cohesive experience? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And sometimes I wonder about the effort spent on those sorts of things. I don't know. It's a really good question. And of course, it all comes down to situation, and in some cases, yes, some cases, no, right? Everything's like that. But I probably feel like I care less about hiding that and just being like, no, this is the web. The web's awesome because you can piece a bunch of stuff together. And Google's damn good at search. And when you search on the Basecamp help site or something, you get Google search results. We all trust Google. Why not? You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know. I don't have a good answer, but that's kind of what goes through my head. Like quickly, if you had to, like you just did, you just asked me.
Yeah. I've also, there was a experience. I feel like I used to also be, I felt like I don't know, years ago, I used to feel like, everything has to be cohesive. Everything has to be consistent. Dustin Curtis, a designer who's made kind of a name for himself. I think he redesigned the American Airlines website. That was one of his big, kind of made a little of a hullabaloo from that. But he's done some really neat things. And he made a blogging product called Subtle that I use to host a blog called Ninjas and Robots. And he did some really interesting things where if you're using Subtle, the experience changes pretty dramatically from, say, like you're on a list of maybe your drafts of your writing or what you want to do, and then you bounce into the page where you're writing, and like he basically just starts over. He like throws out the entire layout. He basically just starts from scratch and just kind of focuses on like the problem at hand in front of you. And so from some you might actually, when you first start using it, there is kind of like a jarring experience. Like the menu isn't the same, it's in a little different spot, or like but when you start using it, it's like, man, this really makes sense. Like this view makes sense to do things this way. When you go into the writing mode, it makes sense to do things this way. And I really like his like non-attachment to how things have to be to keep things just consistent for consistency's sake. Because you use it a couple times and like you everything is okay. Like you just everything is fine. Like you become adjusted to all those changes he made. So yeah, when I think about experiences like that, I'm not exactly as tied, anymore. When I was doing draft, that helped influence me too. It was like when I go to this new page and like I was having a problem, like, well, the menu here is on the left. It steals all this room, and I want to do all this stuff horizontally. And then I just realized, like, why the hell do I even have to have the same menu on the left? It's okay to just get rid of it. Like, people will use the menu on the left on that page where they need it, and on this horizontal page, they have a much more important job. They're going to deal without it for now. So
yeah, I feel like designers have this weird obsession with consistency. And I remember I used to have a similar obsession because it feels like it's part of a system. And designers have a thing about systems. Like, that's even what they call things identity systems and interface. You know, it's like there's a system, and the system, everything that lives inside the system behaves the same way and it's predictable and stuff. And I don't know, like, who cares? Like, maybe in some cases that's better, but to blanket everything and be like, everything has to be consistent. Like, I don't know. Like, I think things should be relevant and contextual much more than consistent. And if in a specific design, information should be on the left versus the right, or the top versus the bottom, whatever it is, because it's more appropriate at that moment, that's what makes more sense to me, I think, than like following a religion, which is kind of what you've set up when you have a system. It's like, this is what we have to do in this case because we did it elsewhere, and you can't question that because it would go outside the system, and the design is a system. Like, I don't know. I've really changed my mind on that over the years, and I just think what's relevant and contextual is really way more useful and interesting and appropriate than what it's supposed to be because it looks this way somewhere else.
Totally. And I feel like it was this, when I had this, I mean, it was almost a little bit of an epiphany for myself. Like, I mean, it was like when I was designing Draft, it was like, it really opened up. It was like this freeing experience to be like, whoa, like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I stuck? Why, you know, like, I don't have to be stuck to the same pattern that I was using before. You know, the problem I'm trying to solve on this page, like, especially with, you know, like, specifically, it was like, I was trying to design the page where you can look at all these different versions. And like, that's the problem people want to solve. They wanted to see like how their writing changed over time. Like, all the other stuff about like logging out and going to your settings, like, people will be willing to not have that, or to have to go back to the homepage to find it. Like, they have a much more important problem, which is looking at their versions of things. They'll probably be okay not having a settings link on that page. And as soon as I realized that, as soon as I dawned on, like, you know, like, I realized, man, just throw that stuff away. Like, make it a little harder to get to those things. It's going to be okay. It was just freeing, and it allowed me to like create some like stuff that I think like did a good job and people have appreciated.
Yeah, it is freeing. It's really freeing when you're not bound by artificial decisions you set up at some point because you have a notion of consistency or something. Like, I don't know. Anyway, and a lot of it comes from, I think, from branding and design and like that world, which is, nope, the logo's always on white or a black field, one of the two. You can't put it on a background image. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that, because it would, you know, violate the brand standards. It's like, what? What do you mean? Like, what does that really mean? What does it really mean, and what does it really matter? I'm sort of curious about those sorts of things. Anyway, that's for another call. But I think you did the right thing, and I think probably Dustin did the right thing when he sort of just made things work in the right time and the way they should, and then you go back to another mode or whatever it is, and things look different at that moment because they're more relevant at that point. So, yeah. Cool. Well, we're out of time today. This is good. There's some other topics I wanted to talk about, which we didn't get to, so we'll have a show for tomorrow. We'll probably do it again tomorrow morning. Actually, tomorrow's tricky. So, but I don't want to break the consistency, but it's tricky because David's in town this week for some important stuff. My afternoons have been booked for weeks, basically, and I've got an important meeting with David tomorrow morning, so it's kind of tough. I'm free at 8 a.m. Central, but I've got something starting at 9 with David, and it's probably going to go till noon, and then we've got something at 1. So one thing we could do, just to throw it out there, is we could do a nighttime show. We don't have to do this during the workday. So if you want to do something at like 8 o'clock or something, or 9 even, Central, we could try that. Just throwing it out. So I'm kind of free in the early morning or like late, basically. But I'd like to make sure we do one.
Totally. Yes, I agree. Early's hard. I take Addison to daycare in the morning.
Okay. Yep.
But let's do.
We try night show.
Yeah, let's do a night
A
show.
half hour. You know, we can.
Yeah,
find the
works
time,
for
I'm
me.
sure.
Let's do 9. I think 9 p.m. Central will work.
9 p.m. Central is good. Yep. Let's
All
do
right.
that. Let's plan on 9 p.m. tomorrow night then Central.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I'll see you.
Cool.
See you later.
Yeah, later.
Okay.
Bye.